welcome to the first SERA Facebook Live event. I'm Alex Sobel. I'm the Labour and Cooperative Member of Parliament for Leeds North West, and I'm also the chair of the SERA group of MPs and a member of the SERA National Executive. And I was a member of the SERA National Executive before I was elected to Parliament in June 2017. SERA's doing this series of Facebook Live events with MPs, MEPs, Assembly members, SERA activists and other people in the environment and climate movement who are involved with the Labour Party and SERA. And it's a really good time to start using this format because of where we are with the climate movement. Just in the last few months, climate has, shot to the top of the public and political agenda. A lot of that is to do with both with the youth climate strike and Greta Thunberg, who was just in Parliament a couple of weeks ago, and Extinction Rebellion here in London, which is obviously a sister movement to that. And recently, just after Greta was here, in fact, we had a opposition day on declaring a climate emergency, and Parliament declared a climate emergency without a contested vote. Doesn't mean that the UK has declared a climate emergency. The government haven't adopted the motion. It is merely an opposition motion which was passed. It's a slight technical difference. So we in the Labour Party and SERA are still fighting to get the government to adopt the climate emergency and declare it. And the challenge really is quite immense and requires complete system change for us to meet the climate challenge of 1.5 degrees warming. It encompasses every aspect of life on Earth, encompasses how we heat our homes, how we build our homes, how we generate energy, how we transport ourselves, how we feed ourselves, how we package our goods, how we make our goods. Every part of life is encompassed by the climate challenge, and that is why I say needs complete system change. And I want to talk a little bit about the historic context of this. Between the end of the 18th century, and when Queen Victoria ascended the throne, the country completely and utterly changed. We were basically an agrarian society, mercantile agrarian society. By the time Queen Victoria ascended the throne, the majority of people lived in towns and cities, working in industrial Britain, no longer in cottage industries or on the land. That scale of change actually is what has ended us up here with the climate challenge. But the scale of the change was so rapid that it completely changed the country. And then industrial revolutions then were in France, in Germany, in Italy, and spread all around the world as we know. Now we need to have another industrial revolution to overturn and undo the harm that industrial revolution did. And it needs to be a clean tech revolution, a Green New Deal, a Marshall Plan for the environment. Many people say that we've got this net zero target 2050 and saying that's too ambitious, 32 years really when we started talking about it. But I would respond to that. John F. Kennedy declared in 1963, I think, that the United States would send a man to the moon by the end of the decade. Really, we weren't technologically capable of meeting that challenge, the United States or the planet. And really, we should have said, we'll send a man to the moon by about 1985. But they did it, the Americans. And that wasn't due to the power of the market. And we hear a lot, actually, about the need to, let the market guide us and not to get in the way of the market, meeting the climate challenge. That was done by the state in America, hardly a very statist nation. And we need to have that moonshot ambition. We need to have that political leadership. We need political leaders to say, we will reach net zero, we will meet 1.5 degrees warming, this is how we do it, and that is our national and global goal. And we lack that political leadership. And I think SERA in the Labour Party is putting that political leadership back in the centre. And we've actually seen the Labour leadership rise to the challenge. And now it's time to put that policy detail behind that ambition. And there's lots of good work going on in the Labour Party and in Parliament for that. So I think I'm going to move on to some of the questions we've had from people writing in. and just see if we can answer those. Now, I just want to say that I'm a backbench MP. That's why I'm the chair of the SERA group of MPs. So I'm not speaking on behalf of the Labour leadership, and I don't sit in any of the teams, DEFRA, Bays, Treasury, that deal with this. So I don't know exactly what Labour policy is going to be. But I have an idea. I do have discussions with them, and we do lobby them quite extensively from SERA. And also I'm a UK MP in England, and the first question is about Wales. So I'm going to read it out, and then I'm going to see if I can do my best to answer it. I think we have got a number of Welsh MPs in SERA who I'm sure will be doing future Facebook Live events and can answer these in more detail. So the first question is, the Welsh Government owns and operates Cardiff Airport. I mean, that is not unusual. So, the Manchester authorities operate Manchester Airport, the Cornwall County Council operates, I think it's Newquay Airport. So there are a number of publicly owned airports in the UK, and actually in the US most of the airports are publicly owned. So publicly owned airports is quite a common thing. Anyway, the decision to purchase the airport using public money is taken before the recognition by the party and by the WLG, Welsh Labour Government, I guess that is, itself, that a state of climate emergency exists. In the light of these new commitments, for the avoidance of future conflicts, would it not be best to return this asset to the private sector? From Dave, a SERA member. Actually, I don't think so, because what I think we need to do, and the only country where has done this, is have a national aviation emissions plan. And that is a plan where we clearly drop aviation emissions year on year, and also create a whole series of new technology through research and development, through technology transfer of low carbon planes. We need to move towards having electric planes. I think it's very difficult to say to people that, it's a bit like the whole Labour government tuition fees argument. We got free education, but now you're going to have to pay for it because times have changed. It's a difficult argument to say, well, the age of air travel's gone. Everybody in the future will have to just, travel short distances. So I think that that we need to have a national aviation emissions plan where we see aviation emissions reduce and we see that technology change. And actually, in terms of airport ownership, the best people to own them is the state or parts of the state, whether it's local authorities or national government, regional devolution, whatever it is. So and they can commit to meet that carbon challenge, while private owners will fight every step of the way against that. And also you'll get we'll cut ours, but they're not cutting theirs, and all of this. And that's why we need a national plan for aviation. Actually, I think public ownership of airports is a good thing to do that. And actually, if we do need to shut airports, private owners are not going to do it as well. So we're better off having public sector. The second question is, will the Labour Party declare that it will ban biomass and domestic wood burning stoves? I'm not sure we're that far down the policy process, but now is a good time actually to write in to the DEFRA team, Shadow DEFRA team, who are looking at these areas of policy, and to make the case for that. I think my only caveat really, biomass is being used for large scale electricity production at Drax, not far from me, and it's a difficult debate because you need to have, for industry, you need to have heavy load and continuous load for the grid, and also if the grid goes down, which it could do, particularly if we get no deal Brexit, you can't restart the grid off wind, off solar. You can only really restart the grid off gas or biomass. And I think that, again, technology is part of the answer here, part of the Industrial Revolution. CCS, carbon capture storage technology, isn't there yet, but there is a lot of work in terms of developing, in terms of research, and they've just put a CCS trial in Drax. So I think it's just an interim solution, not a long-term solution, but I think if we can get carbon capture and storage right, then I don't think in the short term we should not support CCS on biomass plants. But I don't think we should have an expansion. I think having one plant in the UK probably is sufficient, particularly as it generates 10% of the UK's electricity on average. So I've had one more, which I'm trying to find. Okay, so the other question is, do you support, or does SERA support, extinction rebellious demands for net zero by 2025? I've said consistently we need to get to net zero at the earliest possible date, and that sounds like a bit of a cop out. I do support 2025. If that's the earliest possible date we can technologically get to net zero, then we should. And there are lots of benefits beyond the climate benefits of being the first country to reach net zero, because you have the answer. You've implemented a plan and you've developed the technology. That means you, or the UK, or citizens of the UK who've been involved in this, have the skill set, will have the experience to go and do that around the world, and it becomes an export industry. Now, is it realistic? I think that we would need today to have a plan, a 6-year plan to achieve it, and all focus of the government on the country need to go on it. You might have noticed, actually, the government's only focused on one thing, and that's Brexit. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that, if whatever way we leave the EU, there's going to be years, 10 years plus of negotiations, and the government won't be able to concentrate on the climate. It will be constantly in this Brexit miasma, which we will never leave. So if we can quickly move to having a public vote, make the climate arguments and a whole host of other arguments remain in the EU, and actually work with our EU partners on getting net zero right across the EU, and the Party for European Socialist Manifesto is very strong on climate, then I think we can maybe have an ambitious figure like 2025, 2027. But we need to have some points in between that we commit to. So, for instance, Costa Rica are going to be the first country in the world to ban the sale of diesel and petrol cars in 2021. The UK needs to commit to that. The UK needs to basically commit to everything on the first possible date. Norway have committed to having no domestic aviation using aviation fuel, only electric planes by 2025. That is hugely ambitious. The UK needs to commit to the same things. Basically needs to commit to all those earliest dates of all those other countries, and then align their policies with them and lead with those individual countries. That's the only way we're going to get to net zero carbon by 2025. So it's really, really ambitious. It's a really ambitious thing to be doing. And, you know, as in what SERA is doing, well, one of the things that SERA recently announced, and I talked about it actually when I did my speech, I only got 2 minutes in the climate emergency debate we had, was that we've got the budget coming up, we've got the spending review coming up. That's, the Treasury drives everything in government, and to a greater or lesser extent the country. It makes the rules, it spends the money. We need to have a budget and a spending review for the climate. That is the number one priority. I think that all Labour MPs, all MPs actually, never mind what party they're in, need to commit to that and call for that constantly in questions, in debates, in the public, on television, on the radio, in the print media, and in public meetings to the constituents. We need to be unerring in our call for this. And then I think, because the pressure's been put on recently with the climate emergency, I think the Chancellor, if it's Philip Hammond or somebody else by the time we get to the autumn, will have to respond to that. You know, we had Greta Thunberg here, who's Swedish and came from Sweden, you know, to do this, and she's, you know, travelling around Europe on a train and lobbying parliaments and leading public demonstrations, which is great. But we need British people in the UK to making those same calls. And so, you know, people in Extinction Rebellion, absolutely brilliant people, Youth Climate Strike, the activism, non-violent protests, the awareness raising, the pressure they're putting on is great. You always think about what's your next goal in your campaign. And my advice to those people and to everybody watching and listening is focusing on the spending review and the budget. Put your pressure on Philip Hammond. Put your pressure, if he's not the Chancellor, whoever the next Chancellor is, and make this so loud, this cry, that it can't be ignored. You have the support of everybody, you know, pretty much everybody in the opposition benches, apart from possibly the DUP, who are not quite in line with the rest of us, and actually lots and lots of Conservative MPs. So I think that, you know, we need to have a central list of demands and also a number of benchmarks and short-term goals. So the net zero by 2025, the benchmarks around banning the sale of petrol diesel cars, of the way we build houses, of land use and agricultural production, of use of fossil fuels for generation of energy, for electrification of rail, for aviation emissions, all really important. We need to have a whole range of plans around those, and I think the actually and the eating of meat. Let's not forget, that actually meat production creates a huge amount of carbon and other greenhouse gases, and that is, the state can do what the state can do, but a lot of that's about individual behaviour, what you eat. So let's not forget actually the Committee for Climate Change report, which came out just after we had the climate emergency debate, had a number of measures. And it was a 2050 target day. I was at a panel event this morning with Lord Deeb and John Gummer, who's the chair, and I said it should be much sooner. I said 10 to 12 years this morning, which is a bit longer than Extinction Rebellion want. But I laid down the challenge then. And then we had people from industry, respond to the challenge. And actually, electricity and energy is the easiest part. Agriculture, housing, probably the most difficult, and transport most difficult. So we really need to step up to the plate. So we had some other questions. HS2. Do we support HS2? I think actually you need to look at the context of this. It is difficult. It's difficult. I mean, the other thing is, like, do we want zero carbon new towns, garden cities, because they're built on the green belt? These are difficult choices. Look, the reality is, unless we're going to say actually what we mean by net zero carbon is people going back to an agrarian lifestyle, and actually we're going to get rid of all of our technological progress, which I don't agree with at all, then the alternative is using zero low carbon tech to replace the things we have in our lives now, as well as reducing the some of the most carbon intensive parts of our life, and actually changing manufacturing, things like that. So HS2, the reality is, if people are going to undertake European travel not using air, if you live in Leeds or Manchester or Birmingham or anywhere in between near the HS2 route, and there's airports in all those places, and you say, well, do you want to go to Nice or do you want to go to Barcelona? Once you get to St Pancras, you can get to, I looked this today actually because I was just having to pass the board, you can get to Marseille in 6.5 hours. That means with HS2 and us remaining in the EU, so we don't have any border controls, I could theoretically get from Leeds to Marseille in about 8.5 hours. Now, obviously, it's 2 hours in a plane, but if you take the end-to-end bit, because obviously airports take a lot longer, and all the hassle and train travel's much better, then it's a viable alternative, particularly if we can get the price right, and actually train travel is much cheaper than it used to be, and we need a lot more carbon on aviation. We need a big carbon tax on aviation, so it's not particularly cheap, and we can have more equity. But to do that, we need high-speed rail in the UK. So I wish we could do high-speed rail without any disruption. I really do. And maybe there are ways that we can reduce the disruption of HS2. But I think the people that object to it on the grounds of cost, I don't think there's bad infrastructure spending. If you look at how money is created and how the economy works, the best money is spent on infrastructure that gets used. A lot of our infrastructure is very expensive. If you look at the electricity grid, it's very expensive to build an electricity grid. If you look at the gas networks, it's expensive. Just infrastructure is expensive. So rail's expensive. So that's not an issue for me. But we do need but disproportionately spending on rail is in the south of England and attract to London. So alongside HS2, I'd like to see HS3 put in. So we have from Hull to Liverpool a high-speed line as well, and that will rebalance the north-south economy, because we are losing out in the north to the south. So I think actually more high-speed, not less, is my response to that. Another question's come in. So what joined-up work is there with Extinction Rebellion? I'll be honest. I don't. I've been out. I went out on the protests, but chatted to some people. I didn't really see it as like there was like a few people in charge, and it was a massively hierarchical thing. So I thought it was quite a broad sort of flat organisation. So I've spoken to some people. I know other MPs, including in our Shadow Treasury team, Shadow DEFRA team, have spoken to people. But I don't think there's a big, coordination in senior levels led by and senior levels, if there are such things as senior levels, Extinction Rebellion. So I would like to, people from Extinction Rebellion watching, come in and see me. I'm meeting our youth climate strike people in Leeds. I've met them when they came to London from the National Youth Climate Strike. So I'm linked up with those people where it does seem to have a little bit more hierarchy. But I absolutely want to work with people from Extinction Rebellion. It's been a really, really good movement so far, and I'm just full of admiration for it. Can we say 2025 is the moonshot ambition? I think we can. I think, 6 years. It's the same period. 6 years between Kennedy saying he'd land on the moon. They landed on the moon. This year's 50 years of the moon landing. So it's a good year to recall that moonshot ambition. Say in 6 years we will have net zero. But it takes leadership to do it. It was Kennedy and then Lyndon Johnson after Kennedy was assassinated. Where are the political leaders now? Donald Trump isn't going to be leading this. Theresa May's not going to be leading this. Who are the political leaders that are going to lead net zero? I hope that somebody in the US presidential, in the Democratic race, is going to stand up and have the same moonshot ambition and becomes president and realises it. And the same here. I hope Jeremy Corbyn has that moonshot ambition, and our Labour front bench has that moonshot ambition, and we commit to it. And in the EU, Frans Timmermans, I hope, is going to be the president of the Commission. I hope he's going to commit to it as well. So let's see. I've been asked about the SERA role in local government. Before I was an MP, I was councillor, lead for climate change on Leeds City Council, and that's when I became involved very heavily with SERA and moved on to the SERA executive. SERA does a lot of really great work in local government. It's got a lot of councillors, quite a number of people who are executive members or leads for climate change up and down the country, doing lots of really, really good work, whether that's installing solar panels on council houses, whether that's in introducing district heat and power networks, whether that's leading climate commissions or citizens' assemblies on the climate, whether that is introducing low carbon, zero carbon housing, in planning policies or mandatory electric vehicle charging in their planning policies. There's lots of really good work by SERA councillors in local government. Their main issue, as you probably guessed to say, is that they're not getting the support from national government, and that a lot of projects, either because of national policy, for instance, the slashing of the solar feed-in tariff, and generally just austerity, just the cuts to their budgets, means they can't have the level of ambition, they can't have the level of transformation they would like. But they also see it a lot when I was a councillor, when I talked to other councillors, they all see it as part of a broader agenda around health, for instance, with clean air and air quality, or fuel poverty, so insulation schemes, whether external or internal wall insulations, particularly in council properties. Introducing district heat and power means that people can afford to heat their homes, and the cost of heating their homes is far lower, so it's taking them out of fuel poverty. Those are really important things alongside the climate challenge to our SERA councillors. And if you're a councillor watching this, I would heavily encourage you to join SERA if you're interested in this agenda. Also, we have a number of local groups. I'm involved in the SERA West Yorkshire group up and down the country who are also doing great work. You can send speakers to constituency Labour Party meetings or hold events, which we've done a couple of times, West Yorkshire and planning another one. These are all ways that Labour Party members can get involved, and I would encourage you, one, obviously to join SERA, to get involved with SERA, look at our website, and just engage us, because the greatest challenge actually the planet faces is the climate challenge. And in the Labour Party, SERA is the only campaign, it's the only organisation affiliated to the Labour Party who's doing that work. And I'm constantly challenged by other members of SERA executive to raise my game, as well as Extinction Rebellion, Youth Climate Strike, and NGOs and Green Alliance and all those other great organisations. So we are a challenging organisation on this issue to MPs, to the Labour leadership. So it is a very worthwhile organisation joining and getting involved with. So thanks for watching this first Facebook Live for SERA, and hopefully you'll tune in for future ones with my colleagues and other SERA members. Thank you.